Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page for episode 164, the Masonicon Recap. As for me, you know who I am, John Ruark, past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And I will introduce next Juan Sepulveda.
Hello, everybody. Juan Sepulveda here from sunny, scorching Kissimmee, Florida, member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Thank you, Juan. Last but not least for tonight, Robert Johnson.
Hey, everybody. Robert Johnson here from Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, where I am a past master, current sitting secretary, and podcast guy. Thanks.
And District Deputy Grandmaster, Right Worshipful.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I do. I do also do that job. Sure.
You know, you don't get awards for being too humble. But I like
that's true. But also, you don't make friends when you walk around going, "I'm district deputy."
You haven't met many of the ones here in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, it's like my favorite thing. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Oh, you didn't knock 3 times and pull in your charter.
That's funny. Bad part is I've heard that before and I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, no, you did. It's the Jonah Jameson meme.
Wow. Okay, let's do this thing. Masonic news this week. You guessed it. We have some announcements coming up regarding the 300th anniversary of organized Freemasonry. We'll see you in Alexandria on June 23rd and 24th. That is a Friday and a Saturday, where we will be celebrating Freemasonry's legacy, Freemasonry's future. We've already got a great lineup and good turnout so far. So if you want to get in, there's still time to buy your ticket at themasonicroundtable.com/300.
Yeah, I actually had a brother ask me about this the other day at Lodge, and he said, how long are tickets going to be going? And I said, I don't think that we have established an end date for those ticket sales. All I can say is get them while you can, and because we've got over 100 tickets sold already. I mean, there's a ton of people coming, and I am not going to say who, just in case he might bail. But I couldn't believe this one guy said, yeah, I'd love to come and just hang out. And it's going to be awesome. So there's going to be that kind of famous Mason there. So when he confirms, then we can say.
They already know I'm coming.
Yeah.
Dang it, Juan. Come on, man.
What a surprise.
I'll be walking by and people are like, excuse me, where are the organizers here? I'm like,
Your story, right?
I don't think so.
So
They're going to be like, the Juan Sepulveda.
now I do know we'll have to give the caterer a head count soon. So, that will help ensuring that you have a ticket at the banquet. So make sure you get that ticket sooner than later. And the good news is, go ahead and book it now, because we've already had people who work changed and we refunded their money. So it's better to get it in now and hold the ticket instead of waiting to the last minute.
Yep.
So do that. Next up in Masonic news, we have actually 2 interesting articles. The first coming out of the Grand Lodge of New York, who recently held their grand annual communication. And big news, we have a recognition pool. The Grand Lodge of New York withdraws amity with the Grand Lodge of Scotland. Now, I know your Facebook's been blowing up all over this, Robert.
Yeah. So I had an anonymous brother call me right after this happened. He was sitting in sessions, couldn't believe it. And so basically what happened is there are several grand jurisdictions who have lodges within Lebanon. Excuse me. And one of them was Washington, D.C. One of them is New York, another one is Scotland. Those are the three that are really kind of involved here. And basically, the story goes, three guys from the Lebanon Lodge under the jurisdiction of New York got expelled. They didn't know the reason at first. The brother later called me today, actually, to tell me what he heard from guys in Lebanon under the Grand Lodge of New York out there. So these guys get expelled. Then they go and they join the D.C. Lebanon Lodge and the Scotland Lebanon Lodge. One of the guys gets made like a district deputy or provincial grand master or something in the Scottish Grand Lodge that's in Lebanon. So Grand Lodge of New York sends them both letters. Hey, we expelled these guys. You should kick them out. DC says, cool, no problem. Done. Scotland doesn't respond at first. Then they have like some sort of conference where they meet. Everything's all good. And then they got a couple months to straighten the situation out. And they didn't straighten it out. So Grand Lodge of New York pulls their recognition over a dude who hadn't been expelled by them. The phone call came in today, and what I had heard was essentially that these three guys in Lebanon from the this Grand Lodge of New York attended a non-Masonic event and were either fraternizing or talking about Masonry or hanging out with other Masons from an unrecognized or a clandestine organization or lodge or something. And that was the charge. So it kind of made me think, maybe they're not expelled from the Grand Lodge of Scotland because that's not that big of a deal in Scotland or whatever. And then I also heard that Scotland said that they were going to investigate and then, take appropriate action if they felt it was necessary. But yeah, it seems really petty, but that's the jurisdictional thing and stuff happens, I guess. I mean, it is pretty bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, if it sounds complicated, it's because it is, right? There's a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a lodge overseas, and I don't want them talking to other lodges who also are in that same area. And yeah, it's really silly stuff. You send your kid to, a charter school, and he talks to a public school kid, and you're like, nope, you're expelled. And then you put your kid in another charter school, and then the charter school calls up the other charter school and say, hey, he was talking to a public school kid. You should expel him. And the other charter school says no. Well, now we don't recognize your other charter school. That's what happened. interesting. So more to come on that. A little slight correction. Recognition was suspended, but not withdrawn. So
yeah. My mistake. So suspended. Well, that enables them to give it back at any point. Right. So
it's a lighter touch.
Cool. Check Hodap's blog for the latest.
Nice. Okay, let's get to the next topic, which is news right out of Salina, Kansas.
What?
Where the Masonic Temple in that area had their treasurer embezzle over $150,000. Their former treasurer, who is now
I know that guy
being prosecuted. Apparently, yeah, this guy Timothy Fowler, 38 of Solomon, Kansas, became treasurer in July, and like early July, and then by late July was already starting to take money out. So between August and April, he was writing him checks to himself and his business, Solomon City Regalia, and it was only discovered when someone who was a board member of the Temple Foundation had a notice from the bank saying the account was overdrawn. So some commenters made a good point that, this happened so quickly, but if you think about it, if you only do an annual audit, I mean, as soon as he got in office, he started doing this thing right away. So it only took a complete withdrawal of the entire bank account before anyone noticed anything. So trust but verify, guys. I mean, we always have this discussion every once in a while about you trust your treasurer, but you have to make sure that they're not doing bad things.
Yeah, and a simple way to do that, to like, our Grand Lodge requires that there be 2 signers on every check. That helps. You do end up with lodges sometimes. Like I've got lodges in my district that, it's like, that's one of my duties as the district deputy is I have to like make sure that they follow some protocols, and that's a check mark. Do they require 2 signatures? Yes, they do. But I have some lodges that don't, but that's because they do everything EFT or electronic funds transfer. It's a click of a button. So what do you do then? But at least there's a record of everything.
So crazy stuff. Apparently, he got caught, and we'll see. But that money's gone. So be careful, guys.
And he was arrested because of this?
Police were notified, and obviously he's in custody, but obviously he hasn't had a court date yet. So he could face charges of theft of over $100,000 and unlawful computer acts.
Wow.
Stay tuned.
I know some Masons that have done that. Well, they're not Masons anymore.
Previous Masons.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is about it for this week's Masonic News. Let's shift over to the topic of the week, which is Masonicon. For those who haven't seen pictures blow up over RJ and my Facebook feed, the Ezekiel Bates Lodge, number 170. Did I get that right? 170?
1070, I think, maybe.
Okay. Oh, they're Massachusetts. They don't have lodge numbers. Sorry, guys.
Well, technically, their website says they're EzekielBates1870.org.
Must be
so
founding. So anyway.
Yeah.
I digress. These guys out in Massachusetts had a great idea, had their 2nd annual Masonicon, and had a lot that we're going to cover. So RJ and I were there. We're going to cover the whole gamut of things that went on, and it really was worth devoting an episode of the show to because of the impact that it's had for Masonry and things that could be emulated in other areas. And so I think Juan will play our straight man for tonight because he's going to ask us what it was like, and we will attempt to go into detail. So what is Masonicon? RJ, why don't you give a brief overview of the types of things they had there?
Sure. It was everything that everything has never been that I've been to before.
So good night, everybody. We're done.
It was really incredible. So these guys really, I don't even know how to describe it. If you've ever been to San Diego Comic-Con or like a Wizard World, or if you live here in Chicago, maybe C2E2, that kind of was what it was like, but really it was more like San Diego Comic-Con. So if you've ever been to one, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's basically like upstairs, there's 1,000 rooms with 100 different speakers, and all these rooms, and downstairs there's a ton of vendors, and you can buy and meet people and talk and hang out and get food. It was like that, except upstairs was one room with a schedule of speakers in that one room. And so people would come upstairs and watch a speaker, then go downstairs and shop and eat, and then come back upstairs and catch another speaker. And these guys, like their AV club for the lodge, like HD cameras, they called in local cable access to video everything. It was incredible. Brian Simmons, he's the architect of the whole thing for the last 2 years. They had all these speakers. We had the moderated Master Mason only panel, which Brother John Ruark, our own here, was the moderator. It was just an incredible event. There was something for everybody, really.
Yeah, and to build on that, so what I liked was that initially the way they set it up, it was completely free and completely open to the public. One might want to think of it in terms of an open house, like a lodge open house. But this is way much more than that. People brought their wives, people brought their kids. Again, there was food to be had. There was, big screen playing something for the kids to watch. Ton of vendors. Their museum was open. They really did a great job cleaning up their lodge and getting it ready for this event where they had, we're still reaching out to them to follow up on the details, because I just want to learn so much of what they found successful, that I know for a fact they had hundreds of people come in and out during the day. So it wasn't just, 5 guys showing up over cold pizza. It really was a very busy, a very active event. And, to their credit, they had, what was really neat was they had the brothers and actually candidates who weren't even Masons yet, who were trying to petition for the lodge. They put them to work, and they had custom made, Ezekiel Bates Lodge staff, blue t-shirts, white letters, very easy to see from far away. Just look for a guy in a blue shirt. So they event staff shirts. They had at least 30 guys running around, right? Hey, I need this. I can't find this. Where do I go for that? Very well organized from the participation of the lodge members. So that was a really good thing. Go ahead.
It was in the lodge that's pictured on their website?
It was, yeah. So when we first pulled up, I mentioned this in an article I actually wrote that's going up tomorrow, just kind of a review of the day. But, the night before we got there, they had what Brian called media night, which was like all of us podcasters got together. And I think the idea was for us to all sit down and interview people and kind of do our thing. But really, we ended up getting interviewed by them for their YouTube channel. And anyway, so the lodge was like, it seemed so big, that first night. It was this huge lodge, 2 lodge rooms. And they have this tower lodge room, which was really cool. And then the next day we pull up, and the amount of people who are already there, it's a quarter to 9. Greg Kaminsky's about to go on in like 10 minutes. I'm freaking out because I want to catch Kabbalah and Freemasonry. And like now the building looks almost too small for the amount of people that are there. I'm like, holy cow. We go in and we had to stand in line to like sign in, and people are pushing to get upstairs. But there was a lot of space. Don't get me wrong. Like there was plenty of space. It just was different from that perspective, because it was like, I've never seen an event, a Masonic event, have this many people there. Here, even in Chicago, we've tried to have symposiums and whatnot where we have tons of people come in, and it's like tops 50 guys. Ezekiel Bates was expecting like 600 to 800 people to come through the lodge that day. And I'll bet they came close to 5 at least. And that's just me guessing.
Yeah, easily. Go ahead, Juan.
What would you say was the most valuable thing that a brother would get out of going to that event? Like if especially a younger member of the fraternity, like someone who has been a member for not too long.
Well, one thing that I think they did very well was appeal to everybody, right? They didn't focus just on lectures and education. They didn't focus just on vendors. They even did some appendant body degrees. They had tall cedar degrees and grotto degrees done that same night. So we actually ran into some guys who only showed up at the end of the night just for the degrees. So when you have a combination of things to buy, because people, Masons like to buy their swag. When you have very intellectual stimulating lectures, to include our very own brother, Robert Johnson, and his tavern myth about the history of Masonry in the tavern culture in the United States and the colonies. It was very edifying to have that. And there was also a lot of just mulling about time too, where guys had a a cigar shop set up outside. So you could just kind of pull up some lawn chairs under a tent, you know, have some cigars with some brothers. And so when your question asks what value was there for the brothers, I think they hit the nail on the head in the sense that they covered at least something for everybody, right? That if you left there going, I didn't get anything out of it, you must have gone to the wrong lodge because it was not there at that building.
That's very good.
Yeah, there was the idea that was interesting to me were, like, we did this Master Mason panel, and there were a couple questions that came from the audience that I didn't expect, like, how do we do this at our lodge?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think, you know, one of the panelists said, well, you just do it. Like, it was like a hope for those guys, you know, it gets better, right? It's one of those things. It's like, if you make it happen, it happens. It was awesome.
You know, that's a very good point. Sometimes we get stuck on a preconception of what is possible. And we know that there's a lot of events that are organized by lodges, and you have food related, you have golf related, you have, you know, silent auctions, different things. And it seems like the majority, of course, will be stuck behind, okay, this is what's done. So which one of these three alternatives we're going to organize this year? And I would encourage brothers that are in a leadership position within their lodges, try to think bigger, try to think different, try to think of, like, what is the ideal thing you would want to go to? So if you think, you know, if you get super pumped up about, you know, an idea like this where you have a whole bunch of speakers come, or would you get excited about having, you know, all the appendant bodies reunited under one roof, all of them giving brief presentations of their, you know, of their respective bodies? Think about that and then make it even bigger. You know, how do you take that idea that you just had and double it in size? Like, how would that look? And then shoot for that. Try to make that happen.
That's great advice. I mean, again, this is only their second time doing it, and you can tell that they've learned a lot from last year. I unfortunately wasn't able to go last year, but I'll definitely be going again next year. I think they've already booked in, you know, April 28th of next year.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna miss it again. There's just no way. That was so cool. Like, they could never invite me to speak again, and I'd still, you know, like, they could tell me I was horrible, blah 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 blah, and you're a total jerk to everybody. We don't want you here. I'd go incognito. I mean, it was
fake mustache and
yeah. I mean, and the food, they did food, and it's like, these guys didn't operate on they didn't operate and do this as a fundraiser either, guys. This wasn't like, hey, let's do something to raise money for the lodge. This was totally free. These guys gave you like what was it, like a sausage with peppers, a bag of chips, and a Coke, or a hamburger, bag of chips and a Coke, and it was $5. Like, no matter what you got, that was it. You had to buy a ticket for your food. You walked over to the food line, threw them a ticket. They said, okay, one, done, go, bye-bye. Food was good. They had, I mean, yeah, like, the weather was so good too. And the fact, yeah, they had the cigar lounge outside. Just wild. Just wild. And it really makes me think, you know, I'm not trying to sell anything here, but the fact that we're doing this thing that we talked about a year and a half ago now, you know, this 300 party, like, a part of me always felt like this is going to be great. And I always wondered, like, is it going to be really great though? Mm-hmm. And it's like, after seeing another lodge do this and go for the gold, I know it's going to be great. Like, I know it's possible. I know there's enough Masons out there that care and want to do something. And that's really something I found really inspiring, was looking around and seeing all of the brothers there who cared enough to come to this. I mean, John and I were having breakfast, and there were Masons in the hotel, wearing their polos on from lodges. Like I saw there was Connecticut and North and South Carolina. I mean, guys came from all over for this. And these were like, sometimes I'm guilty. I read a book by its cover. I just see, some, old Mason guy and think there's just no way he's into anything that I'm into as far as Masonry is concerned. Baloney. These guys, they came out for exactly the same reason I came out. It was incredible.
One thing, although this wasn't, a direct fundraiser, right? Because there are operating costs that come with this. It's a free event. However, we talked to the secretary the following day, where he had closed things up and kind of checked his books, preliminary books, and they made money for a free event, right? Open to the public, where they have to pay vendors. They have a lot of operating costs that go into this. They budgeted well, they executed great, and were still able to clear some cash. It wasn't, it wasn't a minor loss. It wasn't a wash. They actually made some money to make it worth their while.
Yeah, their biggest overhead, he said, was what? T-shirts?
That was their biggest profit item.
Oh, okay.
They did sell Masonicon T-shirts, and of course, I'm not prepared. I have mine in my bag in the other room.
I'm gonna wear mine next week on the show.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was their biggest profit item. They had them right there at the door. So that's a great idea. Hint, hint. If you have a big event, that's something that worked for them. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, being an agilist guy, I kind of say, well, what went well? What could you do better next time? And they said, it overall, things operated pretty smoothly. And I really tried hard to pull the negative out, and not in a critique way, but like, just, can you think of something that would be better? I'd ask other guys what could be better. And, some of the things that even some of those other guests at the hotel that we ran into, some of the other Masons, they were like minor little details. Like literally one thing I heard multiple times, and if this is the worst thing, then that's awesome, is there was too much to do. I couldn't see all the lectures and get to all the vendors. I was like, that's a great problem to have.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing.
Some conferences, what they do is they'll record all the sessions, and then part of the profitability of the event is capitalizes on that. Okay, we know that you're not going to have time to see everything. You can get the virtual ticket and watch everything at your leisure. In some of the like secular conferences that I've been to, a common thing that when I commiserate with other people, and I'll ask, what are you going to a breakout session, or are you going to this? I'm like, no, I'll just watch that at home. I'm just here to network with people and meet people and talk.
So to that point, I got to throw a shout out to brother Scott Sherman, who
yes
we've had on the show for the Academic Lodge episode. Great guy, met him multiple times, and it was great running into him again. And so, I mean, Robert and I were like, hey, did you see Scott? Because Robert and I were hardly together at all the whole day. He was doing this, I was doing that. We're like, yeah, like, did Scott even go to any lectures? Like, I don't think so. I think Scott just literally walked around and like met or re-met guys he's known for the 30 years plus he's been in Masonry, and
yeah, it was awesome.
That's great. I mean, that's exactly the energy and the access you had to people there.
We did get to sit down and have lunch with Scott, which was really cool. So Scott, if you're watching / listening, it was awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us. Yeah, they had like the speakers they had were really cool.
Who were the speakers, RJ? Do you have a list?
Yeah. Well, just from memory, we had Greg Kaminsky, who did the Kabbalah and Freemasonry. And then I was up next, and I did Colonial Freemasonry. After me was Angel Millar, who did a great piece on the upright man, kind of the philosophy of that. After him was Rich Casaro. Richard Casaro came in from, I think he came in from Spain. He lives there, and he came in by way of New York. into Ezekiel Bates Lodge. After Rich Casaro, we had Pierce A. Vaughn, I should say illustrious brother Pierce A. Vaughn, who did a talk on, it was kind of funny too, because when he did his talk, it said the George Washington Bible. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird, right? Because just before you go into the lodge where everybody was presenting, Pierce A. Vaughn's table was out there with his book. Great book. It's called, I'm going to plug it, Renaissance Man and Mason. On the table, there's like all this alchemical stuff and esoteric Kabbalah. And I'm like, he's talking about a pretty bread and butter topic for such a deep guy. But his presentation was very, Pierce, if you're watching, very misleading, actually. Because what happened was he went into almost the discrepancies within the depiction of the King Solomon's Temple in the George Washington Bible, and basically talked about the discrepancy of the foundation of the temple, which is like almost like this huge mountain, where then it was built on top of that even. So that was really cool. And then of course you had Paul C. Smith, who did music and masonry, which was really awesome. And then Oscar Allen did his piece on clandestine masonry. And then of course we did the Master Mason panel. All those guys were really, really amazing. I think Renaissance Man and Mason is on Amazon. It's like $21. Richard Casaro, you can check his website out. It's just richardcasaro.com. But he did his presentation was on kind of like the triptych windows and all the cathedral architecture. It was interesting. For what it's worth, there's some pretty cool stuff that was in that.
Yeah, so as you can see, a big variety of topics, but some very cognitive, very intellectual type of discussions too. So that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, Rich Casaro had like the most varied audience too, because his audience is, I don't know, like the technical term of it. I wouldn't call it like the holistic audience, but I would call it like not quite ancient alien audience either. But there were, public was there to watch Rich Casaro talk about this stuff.
Cool.
And so that brought a couple people in to into the lodge that weren't even Masons. It was really interesting.
Some of the vendors they had there too. You had Patrick Craddock with the Craftsman's Apron. You had Carl Hearn with Alter Ego clothing, or now Ascended Masters. You had Ryan Flynn selling his artwork there.
Hey,
Ryan Flynn himself was there. We had what was the Grip and Word bow ties and other
Grip and Word handmade haberdashery.
Yeah,
that's what I got on right now, man. Dude was awesome.
Shiny bow tie. Also, a lot of the pendant bodies had some tables. That was really interesting. Like scattered throughout the vendors was, hey, here's this study club, or here's the shrine, and here's the, Scottish Rite. So that was really interesting, because if you're already there for a Masonic event, why not grab a petition? So
right.
They did a really good job of just filling the two levels of vendors with a variety of things.
You mentioned that the family came over and were, around. How did that look? Was it, they were just all over the place, or did you have activities for them? Like, how was that handled?
So the one thing I did notice is they didn't have a lot of like kids games or anything like that set up, but they didn't really need to, because their lodge actually includes like a huge 100-inch, projection TV, or, projector on a screen with couches lined up. So that's really where a lot of the teenagers hung out. They also had two sets of pool tables there if anyone wanted to play. So there was certainly it was kind of like a chill zone, right, for people. And then of course the kids would follow their parents around and that kind of stuff. But it was very very open in the sense that you could trust kids to go around and go everywhere. There wasn't.
Yeah, it was kind of cool because that living room space that John's talking about is like an open floor plan that was twice the size of the bottom floor of my house, and like half of it was like boxed stadium seating that the brothers built for the lodge, and they painted like this 100-inch HD TV on the wall. It's framed out. They're playing like movies and stuff. And I guess last year, Brother John, who's the secretary there, and he was the cool guy who drove John and I around all weekend.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you. He was just saying like last year they did nothing but they projected the Masonic Minute, like all the Masonic Minute episodes just over and over on that wall. Which I thought was really cool. So Steve Harrison's probably stoked. Just, man, like, I don't know how you could have made it better. Like, some dude was kind of petty on Reddit. He was like, you could power wash the stairs. It's like, hey, guess what?
You can do it.
That's all you got? That's all you got, dude, is power wash the stairs. Enjoy the free event.
Exactly.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, so we talked about speakers, we talked about vendors, we talked about stuff for the kids to do. Also wanted to mention one of the vendors too was Brothers Blend Coffee. What are you drinking there, Robert?
I just actually finished a cup of Harmony Roast from Brothers Blend Coffee in Milford, Massachusetts. Get yours today. No, it really was good coffee, and the guys wouldn't let us leave unless we each took like 3 bags of coffee, and they were like, "Oh, thanks for all you do," or whatever. And I'm like, "Well, I'm just glad this is helping." When we were mentioning them on the show quite a bit on Whence Came You, because it's helping out their lodge. Like they need a fundraiser, and this is something that the brothers love and they do, and like it or not, when you get to lodge and if you don't put on the coffee, if you're the first one there, it's your ass. So these guys have a quote unquote Masonic product, and they're doing great, and it's good coffee, really. John told me that the only coffee he can drink black is Tyler's Cup.
It's really good. I mean, I don't really say that very often, so there you go. There's your free plug. Yeah. What other questions do you have, Juan? Since you've been on point today.
Well, one thing I wanted to point out is that over the past few weeks, I've been looking at the YouTube chat window. There's an added bonus there for those of you who watch the Masonic Roundtable live, because there's always engaging conversation happening. So I just wanted to take a moment to point that out. And hey, right now, Brother Ryan Flynn just posted a comment. He actually posted, hey. You see, we have a couple of brothers out there, Brother Blake Marquez. We're going to meet over there at our 300th anniversary celebration. So it's a nice little thing. So we have good conversations happening there. So I wanted to invite the brothers to check it out live. But among the questions that I had was that, were there any drawbacks to attending a Masonic event that was so far away from your home? And if so, was there any benefit that would actually counteract it?
I mean, I'll start. I mean, that I was telling Robert that I had to travel on a Friday, and yeah, I got 4 girls, and I didn't feel like leaving them, and I knew it was gonna be a long weekend. I knew I was gonna have a blast when I was there, but seeing how open it was the next time, it's certainly something that I could take the whole family to. So it's not one of those, you go lock yourself in a secret meeting for 2-3 hours, right? No, this was a very open event. So lesson learned, take them next time, because it's not like the traditional, Masonic meeting. So that was the only drawback, was I had to, be out of town for a while, but would absolutely do it again, because the brotherhood, the knowledge gained, and everything else was just, it was worth the trip. Robert, what?
My only drawback literally would have been just the cost of getting there. I mean, if plane tickets, hotel, all that stuff, it can be expensive. But if you budget, like, I think if I budgeted for that trip, if having $1,000 and budgeted that trip, then I feel like I could do that trip and have enough money to do what I want to do, which is go there, see everybody, go get dinner with folks, and buy tons of swag. Like, I spent $200 on almost $200 on items when I was there. I bought some great stuff from On the Point, and of course Grip and Word. But yeah, that's the only, I think, thing about traveling so far from home was that. And of course, John nailed it too. You got to leave your family behind. But yeah, like next time, I could have totally brought like my oldest son to this. He would have been like running around and doing everything, and I could have been like, "Hey, I got to go present right now," and he'd be like, "Okay, cool, I'll be over here. Yep, no problem." Or I could have told Brian Simmons, "Hey, make my kid pass out water or something." These guys were just tremendous. But check this out. So listen to this. Oh, it's not gonna work. Oh, that's why. Hold on here. Listen.
Hey,
Oh, that's it.
hey.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
It's a video of brother Ryan Flynn, who and that's why we're saying hey, because he did this like video to help bidding efforts on a painting that he's doing to raise money for his lodge. And so they did this video where they snuck up behind him and he was like, "Hey, didn't see you there." So we were giving him a ration the whole time, but it was really funny. He's a super funny guy.
Yeah, absolutely, and with good sense of humor, and again, it all helped out the event and his charity he was running. So that's cool. I think we've. If you have one more question, Juan, we'll then cut over to some of the social media, because there's a lot of guys who were there who also posted some comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to also make a comment about the travel to conferences. I didn't used to go to conference. Now I go to podcasting conferences and Masonic events. I travel, but you can't do them all. Of course, unless you want to be divorced and broke. But if you plan properly, if with enough anticipation, like now, this is going to happen next year in the spring, make sure you start, allocating, start separating a little bit of cash so you can go treat yourself. It's always good to meet new brothers, spend the time. Like I've said it many times, anytime that I've traveled to speak at lodges, of course, the speaking part is something that I really enjoy. I really love doing that, but there's incredible pleasure that comes from being able to just hang out with brothers that you just met, share your life stories and lessons. So I'm looking forward to, of course, June, our event, and also next year I am definitely gonna go to Massachusetts and see if it's true that they have no numbers on their lodges. Travis.
Yeah, while we were talking about it, actually, Juan did check. He said, yeah, 1870 is the founding. And I think in some of my previous podcasts, when I was talking about going to Ezekiel Bates, I kept saying Ezekiel Bates 1870 like it was the number. But yeah, Massachusetts, no number. So my bad, fellas.
I blame you.
Yeah, you should. It's cool. I'll take it.
Right. Let's go switch over to Facebook, where we've had some great comments. Scott Sherman adds that he had a great time catching up as we did with him. So again, thanks for hunting us down, Scott. It was good to finally catch up with you again. It's been too long. Also, I think it should also go without saying that we need to mention that Alex Powers from the Historical Light podcast was out there, and he was a great asset from a history perspective. We toured around a couple different Grand Lodge buildings while we were out there with him, and here's a picture of him hanging out with Rick Hitty from let's see, Mount Hollydale Lodge. So again, Alex was a great asset in really exploring everything. You could tell he'd come a long way. He had some travel things. I think he had to get up at 4 a.m. that day to get over there. So check out his podcast as well, the Historical Light podcast, which had Jason Richards on not too long ago to talk about the Titanic. Let's see what else. RJ, you want to talk about the Grand Lodge buildings just briefly?
Oh yeah. So when we first got there, Brother John from Ezekiel Bates took us to the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts.
Well, this was part of the organized event. I just want to say this is
it's not part of the organized event. Like, this was just Ezekiel Bates being like above and beyond and tremendous, in what they were offering us and for coming out there and doing some stuff for them. And I'll tell you, Grand Lodge of Massachusetts was really amazing. We're walking through there, and Alex Powers was pointing out like the mail chutes that they had. I didn't even know what they were. Multi-level lodge building, where they, you walk by, drop the mail, and it goes downstairs. It was really cool. And then they just kept showing us these lodge rooms in the building, and you kept thinking like, oh, that's cool. Probably doesn't get better. Oh, wait, it just got better. And it went all the way up until we got to like the top lodge room where, the Grand Lodge actually meets on occasion. And it was brilliant. And then we met Right Worshipful Brother Walter Hunt, who is the Grand Lodge historian, works in the library there. Dude spent 8 years basically making a wiki page and linking everything that you could possibly put in a wiki about your Grand Lodge, like all the lodges, what happened every year in proceedings. Like, it's crazy, and it's all searchable. He did that. That was cool. And then the last day we were there, John and I got to go to the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island, which is like maybe 20 minutes.
Hop and a skip, yeah.
Yeah. We met past Grand Master from 2014, Chip, who basically was just amazing. And we met Rick Lynch, who the library at the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island is named after. And he's a fantastic guy, and he's done some work you guys might be familiar with. He worked with Scott Walter from America Unearthed on the Newport Tower, and they've got a cool display in the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island building about that. And their lodge room, oh my God, Grand Lodge of Rhode Island, it's like this starry decked heaven, with like this really cool kind of purple canopy, and they've got some pretty sweet chambers of reflection too. Just saying.
But they're not official ritual.
That's true. Yep, it's not official. Not official.
Doesn't exist.
It's just there. It's a thing.
Pay no attention over there. Hey, I also do want to give a shout out to Brother Jorge Torres. He's a longtime listener to TMR, comments on many of our episodes, and had the good pleasure of briefly running into him. He says he enjoyed meeting Oscar Allen, John R., RJ, and Alex Powers. So this guy is full of zeal for the fraternity. My short meeting with him was great. So shout out to Jorge.
Yeah, like so many brothers came up to us that listened to the show, and too many to name all, but like Brother Luna, who came up to me and was like, "You'll remember, right? Because the moon, Luna." And I, of course, that's all I can think about, right? It was the coolest guy ever. like what he's doing with his lodges is tremendous. And just all the guys, man, it was incredible. Just so cool to meet everybody who like listened to the show, and man, so awesome.
Okay, so there we are. Good turnout. A lot of guys who were there were commenting tonight on Facebook. So if you want to hear their perspective, go check out the Facebook episode event page for episode 164, Masonicon recap. Let's go over to Juan for his final thoughts and maybe even any other wrap-up questions. Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any questions, but it does sound like you guys had a good time. A little jealous over here that I didn't go, but
You should be.
yeah, I am. But next year, though, I'm gonna be there.
Yeah, you need to be there. I'm gonna fly. I'm gonna pay for you to be there if you don't.
Yeah, this recording. Thank you, Lord. It's
Yup.
tape.
My word is my bond.
You know that Robert does post-processing, right? Can't edit that out.
Someone quick download it. No, but it's very good to hear. This event and any other events that you can attend. As we say here in the 17th, in the proud 17th Masonic District of Florida, travel. It is important to get out of your lodge and visit other brothers. Get to see the differences in ritual. Get to see the differences in traditions, and get a better appreciation for the benefits that come from being a master mason. Like the wages of a master mason are greater than gold. Just to be able to commiserate with great men who are ambitious and want to do well and want to do good, it's priceless. So I do encourage every brother to travel as much as possible. Go as far as your wallet allows you. If you can join us in June and have a memorable time, please join us. We'd love to have you. But if you can't travel that far, pay a couple tolls and go to the next district over and meet new brothers. I mean, it's always good. So thank you all for listening and for watching. Again, if you know of another brother that could enjoy this, the program that we have here, the conversations that we have, please share with them. And lastly, if you didn't know, I have a recent episode on the Winding Stairs where I talked about the House of the Temple Lego building. So go check that out. Go to thewindingstairs.com and you'll see that. And so thank you, brothers.
Awesome. Robert, what do you think?
I think that so much of what happened there fueled ideas for me. And not only just for me, the second I got back, Brother Carlos Hernandez from Alter Ego basically said, let's do this in Illinois. And of course, we've got a lot of pretty cool Masonic people in the area. We've got, of course, Alter Ego, and we've got, all kinds of stuff, including Pentagraph Publishing, who does the list of lodges, and we've got all kinds of stuff. And there's what's to stop us from doing it? Nothing. Carlos had asked on our Facebook page, let's do this. And instantly people started saying, well, okay, yeah, contact the Grand Lodge and get the membership guys involved. And no, just do it. You do it as a lodge. You go out there and you start this. Don't have some, membership people do this, because guess what? If you do that, it's going to turn into, nothing against Grand Lodges. I work with a Grand Lodge, but the thing is if you want like education and presentations, you're going to have to take that by the reins. And if you want vendors to come in and, do whatever and set up tables and make a little cash for your lodge by having, vendor fees or whatever and doing t-shirts, make it your event. There's a great way to do this. 300 is coming up. And if you're not coming or going to our event or some other event, lots of lodges are doing like open houses on that 300. Do it. call out all the stops, man. Have some speakers come out and say, we're going to do presentations at this time, this time, and this time. And, go nuts. It's on you. Don't wait for other people to do it. You do it. But other than that, it was tremendous. And I really, really, really cannot thank those guys, Ezekiel Bates, enough for like everything. I mean, just what an experience. And then I have to give a big shout out to John for all his help this weekend. There were so many times where like I didn't know what I was going to do next, and and John and I would just talk and we'd hang out, and like he said, we didn't get to do much together on the day because we were both doing our own things, but like it was great to experience the tours and stuff with John, and it meant a lot. So just awesome. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Feelings more than mutual.
Yep.
At first, I thought you were talking about, again, John, the secretary of Ezekiel Bates Lodge, because he was working hard. He was one of the hardest working. Yeah. So, again, thank you, Secretary John, for doing that. Yeah, Robert summed it up. And you could tell we've got a lot of energy about this because it was an event unlike anything we've seen before. And that's why we wanted to, again, do this as a show topic, because there's so much that's worth emulating. You can't really say it's this one thing they tried. They went all in. Like they went all in on this event, and you could tell I think success was really based off of everyone being committed to it. And one thing I want to add is another quote unquote criticism or critique, not criticism, critique, was that I heard from a couple of brothers there, like, hey, why didn't the Grand Master show up, or why didn't anyone from Grand Line show up? And I said, I'm actually okay with them not having to have a command presence on site. Yeah, it's nice if they show up, but to RJ's point, because this was bottoms up planning, because this was organic, there were other events going on in Massachusetts that day, so I understand that's really where there was a Scottish Rite reunion going on. So there were other things in Massachusetts going on, but that's not a bad thing. They were able to have that success without having to make it feel forced by, hey, the Grand Master is going to be here, so we might as well show up too, right? It was purely organic, a lot of fun. I think I can't thank the brothers of Ezekiel Bates Lodge enough for everything they've done and for the event they put on. So thank you for all that you do for the craft and Masonry in general. And as the other guys said, we will also be doing a similar conference focused on solely the 300th anniversary of organized Freemasonry. So we hope to see you in June. And so if you're in the mid-Atlantic area, not the Northeast, come on by. Love to see you. That's all I've got. Thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.